Hello, welcome to Casual Chat. I'm Brian Germain, and I have Jean Hausser, an amazing human being, multi-layered human being, I guess you might call a polymath, who is a scientist and an adventurer and an author. And what I wanted to sort of pick your brain about is this amazing adventure that you took to Antarctica and what you learned from that experience. So tell us a little bit about what this is. Why did you do it? Why did you go all the way to Antarctica?
Thanks, Brian. Pleasure to be here today. So this trip to Antarctica, this is a trip I took in December of last year. And the starting point for that, this goes back a long time. Like this is, like a lifelong dream. Like it goes back to this evening as a teenager where we were watching this documentary on the family TV. This was a time where people would sit together in a family room because there was only one TV in the house. And so there was my dad there, my brother, and he was watching this Shackleton expedition documentary. And my father was joking about how should consider this as a career, like polar exploration, which is not your typical career advice if you want from the parents usually.
No.
But here the seed was planted, right? I was it became this dream of experiencing a little bit of what those actors of the polar exploration experience. What did they see, right? How does it smell to be there? How does it feel? So, but I didn't get to realize this dream immediately because it takes a lot of time and resources to go there. And also it takes skills, like in particular on this expedition, it was skiing and sailing. And what happened later on was that fast forward during the COVID times, border were closing and opening all the time. People were dying left and right that seemed healthy ahead of that. And in the isolation of all this, I just had this sense that there's a limit to postponing things that you dream of, right? So just about that time, I received this email from a mountain guide in Switzerland that I knew that said, "Hey, we're organizing an Antarctica expedition. We're leaving from the southern tip of South America. We're taking a sailboat there, like a small sailboat, 20 meters long, 60 feet. We're sailing across the past Cape Horn, across the Drake Passage, all the way to Antarctica. And there we're bringing our skis because we're going to ski up and down mountains over there, like walking up with the skis and then skiing down, hopefully in powder snow. We're going to do this for 4 weeks. So the whole trip was a month. And I'm like, this is perfect. This is exactly how I want to experience this. And so we got started there. And I do want to add one more layer there, which is critical for why I'm excited to talk about this, and that's the layer of group cohesion. Because leading up to that, I've been reading about cohesion of groups, mainly from military memoirs, but I didn't experience this world myself, and I was very curious about what it means. Like, what are the skills that make it possible to function well as a group together? And one of the things that I came across was how we have these automatic thought patterns that can get triggered especially when we're in groups in intense social situations, and that can prevent us from functioning optimally. And so to me, this expedition was like a golden occasion to intensify the practice of what I call self-leadership, which is this idea of noticing our pattern and choosing deliberate response despite them. So put together, that was the drive. Yeah.
I think that that's one of the deepest human stories, isn't it? Where people are bound together by a situation that has an element of danger. I think that's one of the things that makes it work. And it can make or break, I mean, certainly depending on the individuals and their commitment to harmony. Potentially, in a situation like this, I would imagine tempers can flare up and people can be reclusive and avoidant to create space. That must have been quite a challenge.
Yeah, and to be honest, I was anxious about this. Was probably the thing I was most anxious about, to be honest, on this
Sure.
expedition, because you're going to be on this boat, right, for a month with a total of 12 people on the boat, and your personal space is literally just one bunk, right? That's it. So and you have to make it work together, right? Because you depend on each other for safety. Like whenever you're skiing up, you're roped to each other on rope teams because there's holes on the glaciers which you don't see because there's snow over it, and you get across that on skis. Like when you're doing watches in the middle of the night in high seas, well, you're each other's safety, right? It's the body system. We watch out for each other. You don't want to set fire to the kitchen, like so you really depend on each other for safety in many ways, and there's no place that you can hide. Essentially, there's nowhere to hide on a small boat like this.
Yeah, that was one of the things that you really wanted to examine, isn't it? Like with your book and your sort of internal debriefing, there is no escape from the other people, and so there's no escape from your own thoughts. I would imagine when you're
Yeah,
skiing and for such a long duration, that's physically challenging, and the inner critic and the doubter within our own minds can start to erode the power that we need to get through it.
yeah.
That's
Mm.
I think there's wisdom in acceptance that we can't escape our reality so that we can engage it.
Right. In what I hear you say is that running away is an illusion because you can't run away from yourself, right?
I
Mm.
agree. Yeah, yeah, and
Mm.
I'm noticing for instance, within spiritual communities like the Buddhist communities and others, there is this almost spiritual bypassing that's built in, right? That I want to ascend to Buddha nature or to love nature or whatever it is, cosmic consciousness, and you're not living your real life. You're not being human. That's
Mm.
I think that's one of the avenues that we can take to just completely
Mhm.
immerse ourselves in what is, whether it's joyful or painful or whatever. It is what it is. That
Yeah. No, and I suppose in what is this is where the freedom is found, right? So I mean, there's that like because this practice of self leadership, the way I think about it is like to notice when we lose sense of the now of the reality, right? Where we go on autopilot, just pausing and noticing that's the minuscule wedge that opens a space then for deliberate choice, right? And it sounds trivial, and it can be incredibly hard to practice, but in a way that can be I think that there's the this is where the key lies, really, to living the examined life, functioning well in groups. Yeah.
sure. It comes to mind for me right now the idea of kind of the alchemy that happens within a group where potentially egos can start to dissolve and the line becomes grayed between you and me, that we
Mm.
become kind of transpersonal in a lot of ways as a group, and we're all just pursuing a superordinate goal of survival, of achieving where the mission is intended to go, to the top of a mountain or across a very intense sea. I mean, Drake Passage. That's We're not talking about the Caribbean here.
Yeah.
That's Did you find that was the case, that there was eventually kind of a transpersonal experience where your egoic structures and sense of self started to dissolve somewhat?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I'm not sure if I would put it in these exact words, at least not from my not from the experience that I had on this trip. Maybe it takes even like stronger simulations and stronger pressure to get to that. But what I can testify about is how I think it's probably the best I've felt in my life to be in a group like this.
Yeah.
And of course, it had to do with the people that were involved there, right? Maybe attracting like-minded individuals. This can be also to the credit of the leader of the expedition that brought together a group that would function well. But I mainly would put it on this. On two things. So one is that we were operating in this group size that is close to optimal for humans if you want to function well, right? Which is 12 people. Because
Hmm.
you get like this 360 degrees vision on everything that's going on in the group. And like it's small enough that you can still keep track on where everybody is at. Um, but and the other side of it was that it really felt like we were self-authoring every day after another, in the sense that there was like there were challenges and there was a lot of work to do. We were busy most hours of most days. But it never felt like a weight because the alignment of the individual in the alignment of the groups, like that, it was the same, right? So maybe I give you an example, like if somebody comes over and is like, "Hey, Jean, can you help out put the zodiac at sea?" Like, I would never feel annoyed, like now I have to do, and I would rather, of course not, because I want to be on the zodiac too. We go skiing, right? This is necessary. Or like, hey, you see somebody cleaning the kitchen, you go and you help because otherwise you can't cook in the evening, right? So there was this sense of alignment between what the individual wants and what the group wants,
Mm-hmm.
and this is something that's in another setting. I feel that it can be harder to experience because we're much bigger group sizes and there's much more noise in the world, right? Coming from media, from different sources, from processes that are needed for big cities and big states and big institutions to function. But those processes, we lose sight of why they're necessary, and they just feel, sometimes they can feel crushing, or it's not really clear why we do them, right? So it sort of distances us from the purpose of the group, right?
Yeah.
And so there in Antarctica, the alignment was there, and so as a result, as I came back, I felt mentally probably the top that I've ever felt.
And perhaps inclusion and acceptance of others is the pinnacle of human experience, maybe. We
Yeah.
come from cultures where egoic attainment, whatever that means, medals or money or the things that people value, the idols that we worship, it falls short eventually. Eventually, we start to realize that inclusion, that cooperation is the spice of life. It's the
Mm,
best feeling in the world, isn't it? To work
mm.
together with others, and over a month, I'm sure you guys all got quite close. In that the fear that is potential in situations like that. I mean, I think most adventure people, our viewers get it. They jump out of airplanes, they climb mountains, they paddle rivers, and they understand why they're doing that stuff. But the experience of fear we see as it's kind of a trap that leads to greater levels of danger when we emotionally saturate ourselves in that emotion. And what I'm getting at is that I think that when we include others in the process of bumping up the level of safety, when we work
Mhm.
together, kind of hand in hand, to make sure the ropes are tied, with the correct knots, make sure that the zodiac is at full pressure or whatever it is, together, I think it can, that kind of loving vibe. I use that word, potentially. I think it's creating safety.
Yeah. Mm.
Did you find that the relationships over time were sort of evolving and deepening, or was there a little bit of respectful distance within the roles, not wanting to get too close? I'm curious.
Well, what certainly happened over time was that the you know the whole process became very fluent, right? So maybe the first time we went ski touring, like you have to imagine, like if you want to go ski touring to Antarctica, it's not the same thing as going to a resort in Colorado or in the Alps because the boat can't get to shore, right? So there's a whole process of um, going on deck and then preparing the backpacks, putting the skis into big ski bags, then transporting the stuff onto Zodiac. Then you have to disinfect your boots because you don't want to bring microbes to shore and back. And you're doing all this then in sailing clothes. And under your sailing clothes, you have your ski clothes because you don't want the Gore-Tex membranes to be exposed to salt water. Then you just go on the Zodiac. There's like 3 or 4 back and forth to go to land. And when you get there, you have to unpack everything. Then you have to take out your sailing clothes. Then you have to take off, your boots. There is sailing boots. Put on your ski boots. You're balancing there in snow, right? Because there's nothing to hold on. This whole process, and then the same thing on the way back, right? So I mean, it's there's easily like 60 steps to to just start ski touring. Um, and so the first few days, it took a long time, but on the last day, it was like extremely fluent, right? Everybody knew where they could help, when was the role, when is my role to do this and that. and so everything became very fluent. Similarly, when you're skiing on the tightrope, it's a bit like it's a bit of a circus in the beginning, right? Because I know that there's this thing that the rope somehow it just likes to get it tries really hard to get tangled around skis. I don't know why. The life the rope gets a life of its own when you're trying to ski up on a glacier, and it gets tangled around the skis. And then the when you do that and you step on your rope, and the person on the front has to stop. They turn around because they have the sunglasses. They look like they're pissed at you because you don't see the eyes, right? They look like a
Oh,
stern
that's
face
interesting.
there. And then you have to untangle the rope, but it's really hard because your skis are so long. And like so, in the beginning, it's a bit of a circus. But then after a week or so, everything became fluid, and you start to realize how you have to take the curves, make sure the rope stays
Hmm.
tight, and then you help the others not getting tangled in the rope. So like this, there was a sense of fluidity that developed in the group.
Hmm.
And when it came to becoming very close, I think that's I mean, there was plenty of time for deep discussions, right? Because I mean, to go from South America to Antarctica, it takes 7 days, right? And 7 nights. And the same thing on the way back. So there's plenty of time on watches, because what you're doing is you're on deck, right? 2 hours watching for safety, and then you have 6 hours where you're resting, and then, so there's plenty of time to talk and go into depth. Um, but at the same time, like for me, there was certain distance that I felt that it doesn't have to be. We don't have to melt, right? It's good to be individuals. This is an expedition. There's not necessarily a need to be deeply intimate. Like it was sort of I wouldn't say professional, but like an
I know what you mean.
effective intimacy, right?
Hmm.
Effective
Objective.
intimacy, perhaps.
Yeah, so you play the role and keep the ego out of it. Really, I mean, the storyline that people lay upon challenges can create more friction, not less, potentially.
Yeah,
I would
yeah,
imagine. But I would imagine as a human being on such a journey, it's inevitable that you start to, sort of admire people. And to me, admiration is an aspect of love. It's an aspect of that fluid experience that is not
yeah,
only about checking ropes. It's
yes,
about the whole sort of the way that you make eye contact, the way that you communicate in sort of minimum effort but maximum result.
yeah.
It's impressive that humans can do this. To me.
Yeah, this I can emphasize with like the sense of admiration and appreciation you develop for other. The admiration I can definitely see because um, like that's another aspect of how nice it is in a 12 people group,
Hmm.
because like and isolated from the world, right? Because what happens there is that everybody brings a unique gift, right? So if you're 12 people, there's going to be someone who's great at singing, and somebody else is going to be great at climbing. The other person is going to be great at sailing. The next one at cooking.
Hmm.
The other one's going to know something really cool about how politics work, like from the insider situation. So everybody brings unique talents, really. Um,
Yeah.
and this is maybe something that doesn't happen if you're within a structure that counts millions of people, right?
Yeah.
So it was easy to admire others. Like I remember, for example, one thing that comes to mind now is that we had the expedition leader was helped by another mountain guide, right? So, um, and for me, it was admirable how the other mountain guide would always be the one that if somebody was maybe standing alone, a bit on the side, like that guy would just go over and make a little joke, like be a bit warm with them, right? And I thought this was so admirable. Like I really appreciate when he did this for me like a couple of times, and then I saw how he was doing this with others at other times. So that's just one aspect of it, but there was plenty of other moments to notice and feel that.
Yep. Yeah, I think a great leader always brings out the confidence in others, brings out their own, sort of shines a light on your
Mm.
abilities to boost it higher than it was before. You're kind of leading behind by keep shining a light on what's the objective and what is the means, the people with their individual skills. That's the means to these objectives.
Mm.
Phenomenal experience that is, I mean, this is an archetypal journey, right? I mean, we've been writing of these stories since, the early Vikings and that sort of thing. This is no different, and we can belittle it and say, well, I've got expensive rondinette bindings and I've got the, fancy Gore-Tex clothing and all that stuff that makes it easier, but it's no less deadly an environment.
Mm.
It has the potential to take life very quickly. And I think that when you band together a team of adventurers like this and do something absolutely, amazing and almost not doable, almost, the whole world is right there with you. I mean, you may not realize it at the time when you're skiing across, the snow. You're just trying to get through the day and not die. But what you don't realize is that you're making tracks within the collective consciousness of humanity because we all wish we could be there.
Mm.
We wish we
Yeah.
had the skills, the knowledge, the connections to actually be there. So instead, we get to hear your stories.
Yeah.
The stories of the Artemis astronauts, the stories of the people that get deep underground, all that stuff. Because I think the nature of the human being is fundamentally adventurous.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, yeah, and this is why I'm so excited to be here and discussing it with you because
yeah.
I've loved reading about the adventure of others and then when I returned from this trip, I felt that I didn't know that many people who had the chance to do this, and for myself, again, it's like a 30-year dream and 5 years of preparation in because I didn't know how to ski like 5 years before the expedition, right? So, and I had this problem with the fear of height, which is not great if you want to climb mountains. So it was quite,
Well, I want to
quite,
talk about that a little bit because as you know, I've spent a little bit of time thinking about and researching the topic of fear, and not as a limit, but as an opportunity. That's how I think of
Mhm.
fear. Is an indication of a thought pattern that I've had all along that I'm not powerful, I'm not capable, I don't have, the ability to get through this. It's doubt in my experience.
Mm.
And I would imagine that over time, in not just this journey, but the 5 years leading up to it, or maybe your whole life leading up to it,
Mm.
um, there's been a conscious effort to push through that resistance.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this has been the journey of the 5 years leading up to this expedition. That was exactly the sense of it, because of this other side of fear. There's this freedom, right? Like there's a life well lived. There's all the possibilities of the all the amazing things we can do in this world while we're alive, right? Um, and perhaps I think when you mention how fear can be a block, like there's a special moment that stayed with me, and that was during my skydiving journey. Like because like this was really a big one to push through because I wanted to befriend my fear of the void, right?
Mm, yeah.
And so I do what everybody does, right? You sign up for a tandem jump, and you like the night leading up to that you can't sleep, and then in the driving up there you're like, what am I doing? And then you have to sign up this waiver, like if something happens you guys are responsible, like I can't believe I'm signing this. And then you have to dress up, then you get on this plane and it takes forever to get to altitude, and like terrible. And then did the tandem, and I landed, and I felt the job is not done. I'm still terrified of this. So what do? I sign up for the AFF, right? And but this time was obviously it's more exciting, right? Because this time you have your own parachute, and you're supposed to land it yourself. Nobody can land it for you. Uh, and I remember very, very clearly this the tipping point there was actually not on the first jump, it was on the third one. Because
Mm,
the first jump, I could just like, I don't know, like it was still new, right? So I just shouted out, and then I did what I had to do. It worked out. The second jump, it was, just pushed through the still the fear. And the third jump, after the third jump, I'm like, this is just too negative. I just can't deal with this anymore. Like I told my instructor there, look, this guy, this was in France, right, just on the border to Germany and in eastern France. And I told my instructor there, his name was Fafa. This is like a tall, slender French guy with sunglasses, perfect tan. Like picture your typical skydiving instructor.
Yeah.
And I told him, look, Fafa, I think I have one or two jumps more in me, but like after that, I'm gonna have to quit because I just don't have it in me to keep pushing for this terrible drudge of getting out that door, right? So I could push it like 3, 4 times, 5 times, then I'm done. I'm just exhausting. I can't do it anymore. And then all of a sudden, he toned down his like he took down his energy a bit, and took the sunglasses off and said, "Oh, Jean, I get it. Your brain is thinking that you're gonna die. So what are you gonna do? How about this? Think about something positive on the way up. Like, why are we doing this? Like, this we have the chance to be in this day and age where we have the technology to do this. Like, we're healthy enough to do it. The sky is beautiful. You get to see your homeland there from the sky. It looks gorgeous. You get 2 parachutes on the back. It's super solid. We have a specific instruction path that's going to get you there. And then you rehearse the jump in your mind, you visualize it, and then you go back and forth between those two things because your brain can't be thinking about being afraid when you're doing that, right?
Sure.
So that was the thing that got me through the AFF. And he didn't let me befriend the fear because he merely distracted me of it. Like the next layer was actually when I came across your book. Um, but but it was this sense of like this was a real tipping point in my journey to become friends with my fear.
For sure. Yeah, there's definitely a phase of examining the why and the how, right? So I think with any fear, you have to understand how your harness works before you rappel off a cliff, because you won't invest your confidence in the equipment if you don't fully understand it and actually examine it. Like when we check our parachute, we do it in a methodical way, and then we feel better. I also have discovered that people can do all those things, all of those rituals, those safety steps, and still not assign their confidence. It's up to you.
Mm,
It's up to you to put your stamp of approval and let go
interesting.
of your fear, to sort of dismiss that thought process, that mindset as not relevant here. I got this, and actually let go and actually lean into the experience as like I say, you relax, you focus, and you flow.
Yeah.
That's a choice, and it's a brave choice
Yes.
to let go of fear.
There was probably the next, like for me there was a second stage, right? Really, that transformed the experience again, right? As because I remember very vividly being on this plane. Now it's jump 70, and I'm still like
Hmm.
like I don't want to be there. The door opens. I don't want to be there, right?
Hmm.
And I go out of it, obviously, but it just feels terrible. And this is where I came across your book, like this idea of um pause, breathe, right, and then come into the sensations and then flow. And it every time I do this, right before I'm always like, I don't want to be there, and then I do this, and in that moment that I come into the now and get into the physical sensations, then I can feel literally a smile coming up there and like,
Hmm.
just
Yeah.
John doing his thing there, right? So this is
Yep.
this is transformation.
It
This
really
practice.
is. It's an alchemy. It's the same
Yeah.
amount of energy. The question is, how are you wearing it? Are you wearing this like a wet blanket? Are you wearing it as, something that doesn't feel good? Or are you just deciding that this high heart rate, this blood pressure, this situation that you're interpreting as risky is exciting? That's that's my way to wear it, with the remaining adrenaline that is left over after I've checked my
Uh,
parachute, after I've checked that the spot is okay, and I've done the visualization. There's nothing else to do. And you said the word void earlier, and it really made me smile, because that's, I think, what it comes down to, the being comfortable with the void space when there is nothing else to do, where you have residual anxiety. And I think that the mental ninja that we can rise to that challenge and stare straight into the void and see nothing but peace and quiet,
mm.
potentially. Or stare into the void, the darkness, and go, it's your choice.
Right. And since I have you here, there's one thing that I've been that I've been wondering since this learning, discovering this practice of yours there, which is because you just mentioned it. The thing is that fear is energy, is activation, and then you decide it's valence, positive or negative, right?
Mm,
And the thing is, in your practice, I don't see the step where this happens because
mm,
um, it's it's about pausing, breathing, sensations, and flowing, right?
mm,
Um, and as I do this, then I see the valence becomes positive. But at no time I try to convince me this is amazing. It
mm,
just
mhm.
is somehow I don't know where it comes from. Is it from the outside? And so I wonder if you have something to say about that because
Well,
this part I don't get.
the experience of flow itself for me is a state of flowing amazement. That I'm amazed
Right.
how simple the individual steps are. That I have to pull this toggle because I'm at this part in the pattern or something like that. The space in between the actions can be a state of elated awe and exuberance about the experience itself and not with sort of a complexity to our mindset. And I think that that's the
Yeah.
beauty of a flow state, that state of highest competence, is just a very simple mindset. But it feels, the flavor of it is distinctly positive. It's
Mm-hmm.
joyful, whether it's
Mm.
playing the piano with expertise or the rhythm that you get when you're skiing, that rhythm that almost hypnotically puts you into an empty zone where you and the void are one, that the ego dissolves and there's only the experience itself, the bliss
Mm.
of a moment well sculpted.
Mm. So yeah, as if flow is inherently has a positive valence inherently.
I think our
Mm.
whole life is sort of grinding gears until we get into a flow, and we're trying to find ways to sculpt the mind and our understanding of the world so that we can be in that flow state more often with more
Yeah.
things, and
Mm.
hopefully. And this is something that I wanted to run by you. Okay, so you go to the bottom of the world, so to speak, and you do this incredible adventure that most people would just die to do. It's a dream. You have the experience, and then you come home,
Mm.
and you're sitting on your couch, and you realize the dishes have piled up in the sink. You're like, right? And life, sort of comes at you as mundane.
Mm-hmm.
The integration, like sort of reintegration with your personal life, with your dishes, your toilet that you have to clean and the research that you do at work and all that stuff. Um, how did that transition go for you? What was that like?
Yeah, that's a great question, and this is something. It's still a mystery, something that I'm still sitting with. Because yeah, like coming back from there, right? It was. I just have to describe the stage, right? Because it's coming back from 4 weeks of only doing things that I believe are worth doing, right?
Yeah.
In a integrated group of just the right size and without all the constant noise from the world, like the negative news that we have no control over, the non-stop comparison to other professionals on LinkedIn or others looks or stunts on Instagram and right. So no, instead this was like everything was self-authored. Like I had the complete sovereignty over my thoughts, like for this 1 month. And so then coming back to the world initially was just opening the inbox again, and you're okay, you have to check in to for the flight, and then you have to write a note to the person that you're arriving at on the next day because you're sleeping in that city. They want to know when you arrive by which flight, and you have to look this up, and then the computer doesn't work, and you have the two-factor authentication that's broken there, and like spending 4 or 5 hours straight on the computer just as I came back. It felt horrible, and I'm like, why am I doing this? This is not life, right? Um, and following that, it was there was still, despite that, there was like a sense of lingering peace and being the author of my thoughts, like and that lasted as long as I didn't go back to the lab. But then as I get back to the lab, what happened is that I I regained my ability to help and help my team, right? Because I regained the understanding of what were our struggle, what were we stuck with, and this is, you need to have this so that you can start solving the problems. That's basically doing the research, right? Research is sitting in unsolved problems and thinking of how I'm going to solve this. So you need to be sitting in the sense of, I have no idea how to solve this right now, but I'm going to figure it out. And it's great, but it's also it's very incomplete. Like, you're most of the time you're sitting with this open problem that you haven't solved yet, right? So as this sense of being able to help my lab again came back, I lost the calm and the peace that I had.
Mm.
But what stayed was the memory of what you can feel like to be sovereign over one's thought and one's time and one's energy, right? So essentially, it's a bit like if I was a fish and leaving the water, right? Then I see the water. But if I spend all my life in the water, and I wouldn't know what is water, because it just is. It's everything I know. So leaving the world for a while was a great way to see what it means to be inside it.
Mhm.
And what I learned from this is that you want to be, I do want to be in the world, because I deeply care, and I want to get to the bottom of the research questions we're working on. I mean, we're trying to find a way to get immune cells to find and kill cancer cells, right? So basically try to find the golden way to cure cancer. But you can't do this if you're skiing or fishing on a boat out in the wild, right? So that might feel good, but I think this sense of purpose for what I want to do, I do need the world. So I have to be in the world. So what's the resolution there, right?
Mm.
And essentially, I haven't figured it out yet. But the path I'm on is try to creating those oases of sovereignty over my thought and over my time.
Mhm.
And so specifically what it means is that, like most, I stopped taking meetings in the morning, for example, because I need this to think deeply about the science we do. Otherwise, we just do superficial, incremental stuff. We never get to the bottom of the actual problem that we want to solve. I removed the email program from my phone, because otherwise, if I have 5 minutes free, I'm going to check email and then start answering so that it's done. But then I don't get to be bored for 5 minutes and actually let my brain think about deep problems. I Notifications are off in the mornings and in the afternoon, so I can actually get stuff done. I don't get distracted. If I have if we have dinner with my girl, then the phones are away for the same reason, right? So it's all about trying to recreate oasis, and it's also about leaving at 6 p.m. in the evening, um, so that the day doesn't end up eating energy day after day, and then every day we have a bit less energy and we do less and less creative stuff, right? So I've been trying a lot of things, and I haven't figured out the magic bullet yet, but this is definitely helping. So
Yeah.
it's an
It
ongoing
seems,
exploration, I would say.
yeah, it seems like um, the basis of the thoughts that occur is the feeling that we're carrying, right? And so if you go and do an adventure like this, or anybody else is capable of experiencing bliss for a prolonged period of time, if you have that as a touchstone
Yeah.
that you can go back to, as opposed to the habitual touchstone of complaining, blaming, the helplessness, all that kind of stuff of, oh, it's too big, I'm never going to get there. We're never going to, I mean, you're trying to cure cancer. It's probably not going to happen in a day. People have been working on this for a while. So how, it seems to me that you having an experience like this that's still a resonant frequency in your mind that you can reach out for when you need it, when you take the breath, and it's exactly the same kind of a breath that you did on the side of a mountain to
Mm.
collect yourself. I think that that is an aspect of the technology of your efficiency.
Hmm.
It's not separate.
Yeah.
It wasn't a
Yeah.
waste of your time, is my point. That it
Right.
was something that allows you to step out of the collectively building stress, that's accumulating, and step out of it and go, wait a minute, I still have Antarctica in my vibe. It's still caught up in
Yeah.
my craw a little bit and never goes away.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. I
Well,
mean, this is,
it's work. I mean, I'm
yes.
sure it's already working.
Yeah. I like how you put it. I think this is this idea of touchstone, you call that, right?
Mm.
So yeah. Yeah, and so having that anchor is great, and but we have to remember to get back to it, right? And this is still a live, ongoing practice, like this, coming back to this notion of self-leadership that we discussed in the beginning, right? That if I don't notice that I get activated by something and some thought, emotional, behavior patterns start running the show, then there's no space to get back to that stone, right? So this is why this idea of pausing, noticing, naming what's going on, and then choosing deliberately is like the most important is the first part, right? The pausing and noticing. Then we get access to the stone possibly again.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think probably also the self-awareness that comes as
Yes.
a result of this sort of an experience to know where you are on the emotional spectrum at this moment. To recognize, wow, I'm getting myself kind of down. My thought patterns have led me to feel helpless or bitter or, sort of, snippy at other people or something because I don't feel good. Whose fault is that?
Yeah.
It's not their
Mm.
fault. Even if they did something that triggered me, it's still my job to maintain my vibe, not anybody else's. And hopefully that lesson that you inevitably learn on a journey like that can be helping serve your community in your lab to
Mm.
right. I mean, I understand that they haven't exactly signed up for that kind of an adventure, but it's an adventure.
Yeah.
Exploring, not knowing, just like when you're skiing on, are gonna, is this next wave gonna capsize my 60-foot boat? You don't really know. And being
Yeah.
okay with not knowing is being okay with the void. It seems to me that
Yeah. There is a parallel there that I can see.
mm-hmm,
Definitely. There is a there's a common quality in the negative valence of that yeah, you don't know, like, and you have to know, it's your job, like you have to find out, and there's a difference perhaps in the intensity of it, because if
not
you don't know but nobody else knows that you don't know, it's it's more manageable. But yeah, if you don't know and you need to speak about that in an hour, then it can feel a bit like the first time you're jumping from the plane, and
mm-hmm, yeah,
yeah.
it's intense. It seems to me that adventure is always a metaphor. The
Mhm.
risk is compressed into a short timeline, and the consequences are really obvious. I don't pull, something happens. If I don't remember my ski poles when the launch gets to the ice, I don't have ski poles. That's a big deal. Whereas the timeline's a little slower, I would imagine, in the lab or in our normal lives. Everything is sort of drawn out. But for the cancer patient, this is no less life and death, right? The work that you
Yeah.
do potentially could turn the tide for millions or even billions of
Mhm.
people. So
Yeah, I mean,
it's
and obviously it's not just me, right? There is thousands and thousands of colleagues that are working on this. We're doing this together. Um, but I do believe that we have, like everybody has that different angle, and uh, and I like to think that we all think that we have the right angle. Uh, I also like to think that our angle is more right, but that's
maybe that's absolutely natural. But I think that
mm,
the story that you were telling about the different expertise within your team, right? Each person has their pinnacle, that's the area that they're best at, whether it's sailing or something else, and that's no different in the research fields,
mm,
or in a job. Somebody has a
yeah,
corporate job or whatever. Everybody's got their own, and to try to turn a diamond into a doorstop is pointless. Use people for what they're good at, I think, is wise. And at the same time, I think, to honor, to admire the value that everybody's bringing to the table. We cannot do any of
mm,
this alone.
mhm,
And that's not vulnerability. That's strength in numbers.
yeah. Yeah, like a collective, the collective brain of humanity, right?
Yeah.
And heart.
Well, there you go. Yep. And that's not separate. It seems to me that if everybody's grouchy in the process of achieving the goals that must be achieved, we're not going to get there.
Mm,
Whether it's cancer research or sailing across oceans or climbing mountains or figuring out the economy or stopping wars, all this stuff is not easy.
mm,
But if we kind of reach towards consensus and cooperation, then just about anything's possible. I think that's you've demonstrated in a microcosm a nearly impossible feat, right? And that is something that it's inspiring to others because we have our own impossible or seemingly impossible feats
mhm,
with relationships, with day-to-day stuff, with rising gas prices or bombs dropping. It's a scary planet to live on.
mm.
Scariest one I've ever been to. And it seems to be that the counter of fear is love. Is that community vibe,
Mhm.
right? And I
Yeah,
think that there's a lot of that within your book, right? I mean, you're discussing not only the nuts and bolts of this mission, but the human experience, right?
yeah. It's like it's a story of an adventure, and it's a story of what it feels like to go through that, and what one can learn from it. Um, which I really strongly felt about writing up when I came back, because I wasn't planning. I didn't go on this expedition thinking I'm going to write a book about it. That
Mm-hmm.
wasn't the journey at all. I thought I'm just going to go there, and then I felt it was a very special moment that took a lot of preparation and a lot of his investment to make happen. And now, it's the evening and on my bunk, I make a few notes every night, right? It's just not to just because you know how everybody knows how it works. The most beautiful moments, they're gonna wear out, right? They're gonna fade. Memory is fragile. So wrote a few notes every day, and uh, only when I came back, my intention was just I'm gonna take these notes and put them into some form that I would actually want to read back, that it makes some sense. Because when you take notes, there's like a few a few words here and there, and then you remember in the moment, but maybe 5 years later you won't, right? So I'm like, I'm just gonna put those notes in the form that I can actually that it means something to me. And then all of a sudden, there was 50 pages, and I'm like, I think others may want to to read that actually. So then I went through the process of turning into a complete story that is intelligible not just to me, and but yeah, it didn't. It wasn't like a it wasn't something that I planned to do. It's just like it's more like the book wanted to be written. So
Oh, I know that feeling.
yeah,
It's like
right.
the book makes you write it. You don't have a choice.
Right,
It's a passion that has to be fulfilled, like an itch that needs to be scratched.
right on.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and I mean, it says that it was valid. Your effort was valid not only to do it, but in the hard work of writing a book. I can speak to that.
mm.
It's or at least to write a good book is very hard. And this has an intrinsic value. The
Mm.
message that you're sharing is one of the key messages I hope that others will really grab onto. I hope people read this book and form in their mind their own adventures. Maybe scaled down a little. This is kind of lofty, but it's super inspiring and on many different levels.
Mm.
It shows that we can get along. That the Lord of the Flies and the stories of how people coming together inevitably turns into chaos. I don't buy it. I mean, I know it
Right.
happens in the movies, people fighting, they get locked in an elevator in just a matter of time and they're eating each other or whatever. That's not my experience at all. I find that when you put the
Yeah.
pressure on human beings is when you actually get to see our beauty.
Right. So then there's two theories there. Is it that Hollywood writers have a very different life experience than we do, or is it that we need something dramatic to to tell? But I mean, I don't want to give the impression that this expedition was just harmony, right? So there was times of friction. Um, I mean, but then this is where this self leadership aspect comes in, right? To like if there is friction, then the one thing we don't want is to be run by our patterns, right? Because then we just go somewhere automatically. But like to resolve friction, it helps a lot to be deliberate about how we respond.
Yes.
And that can still fail. Like at times I succeeded at this, as I write about, and at times I failed at it. But then even if we fail at it, we can always repair, right? There's always and there's also tools for repair, right? Like a tool I like, for example, is this idea um, of going up to the person that there is conflict with, and then naming what feeling is there. You know, is it like fear? Is it anger? Is it usually it's anger? And then maybe like one objective fact that triggered that we're all going to agree on that person said that, or not an interpretation, but an objective fact of what triggered the anger, and maybe one or two sentences about why that's important to oneself. And and so this tool I used at one occasion because I had a friction moment with the leader of the expedition, and through that the relation got better. After this, we had less friction, right? So there is opportunities. We don't have to be perfect at this Buddha level like of noticing and choosing deliberately. Like we're still human, but there's things we can do. We can repair. It's
That is really valuable as a concept. You know, the friction's going to happen. I mean, unless
yeah.
you spent your whole life in the mountains of Tibet meditating and you have no ego structures at all, no story, no triggers. Good for you. But most of
Yeah.
us, you know, have things that this reminds me of that, it triggers me. I have my insecurities that get triggered because I have a little bit of imposter syndrome that I think nobody else has, when it's actually all of us has an element of
Yeah.
it. It seems to me that on a mission like this, there's a commitment on all individuals, whether it's spoken or not, to find your way back to harmony, to find your way to resolve, because your commitment to safety is wrapped up in your ability to cooperate with others. You're not going to
Yeah.
survive without each other. I just wonder
Yeah.
about the rest of the world, you know, where
Yeah.
you can escape and badmouth people and have, you know, sort of an adversarial relationship forever, you know, never resolve it. Because you don't think of yourself as in the same boat, when in fact, your psyche would be a lot healthier and happier if you were to take it, like you said, you know, head on in a way that's concrete, that voices your feelings and voices the specifics um, in a way where you're trying to understand each other.
Yeah, because we're never gonna get away from friction, right? This is always we're different individuals with autonomous nervous systems, right? And we work in groups, but we may want different things, right? And I mean, friction has benefits too, right? It for one thing, it forces articulation. I mean, and in science we use this a lot, right? When like you don't get to claim anything scientific without three anonymous experts from somewhere in the world criticizing like as best as they can, and then you got to answer that. And if don't have convincing answers, your article, your discovery doesn't get published. That's it, right? So only after it passes scrutiny and in the process it gets better. I mean, it always gets more solid. Sometimes it gets more messy because this expert wants this, that expert wants that. So the beautiful crafted message you had initially, now it turns into this hideous thing that you don't like as much. But it gets more solid because you had to defend your position and convince someone who had a role as an adversarial entity. And so like this friction forces like articulation and quality there, right? So there is all for friction, and in the end it's about, I really believe in this notion of having the emotional and the emotional tools to take the best from out of friction and still function well as groups, right? So I think this is really one of the big mystery of humanity is how do we get there as best as we can.
Very much so. Yeah, I mean, to get anything done in this world with human beings involved, There's going to be the grinding of gears, to
Yeah.
reach. If the goal is, I would like to pursue truth, well, then your opinion and your being right has nothing to do with any of it. It's about what is true. And sometimes in science, I'm sure this has happened to you many times. I know it has to me. You discover that your original theory, your original belief, wasn't valid. And that,
Yeah.
that person that pissed you off because they flared up your ego and pointed out something, a hole in your argument, later you're thankful.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'd rather live in the real world personally than an illusion of my own creation where I am, you know, uh, my own hero in my story.
Mm.
That
Yeah.
describes many
Yeah.
of our challenges.
Yeah. And this, really, I feel strongly about this because yeah, like because an unexamined, untested idea in science, it's useless, right? Because it's true in our own world, great, but
Hmm.
then as soon as you put it in the real world, it doesn't work. It fails, right? So
Yeah,
yeah, an idea that's not tested, examined, challenged has very little value.
yeah,
Um, so
yeah.
yeah.
Well, it's a starting place. I mean, I
Mm,
think our intuitive knowing is a great starting place. It's better than guessing,
hmm.
where you have a feeling, I think that this is what it is, or you wake up from a dream and you have an insight and you have no way to explain it logically. The left brain had nothing to do with it. And then you go and do the work. You roll
Exactly.
up your sleeves and you try to discern, you try to disprove it. You try
Mm,
to, come at it from multiple angles. And like you say, all these other people are doing the same thing, helping you peel back the onion and figure out what's in the middle.
yeah.
It's beautiful, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, and I like that you bring the other side of it too, because science is not only arguing with anonymous people and working to convince them for a year, right? So it's not only that. There's the creative, bubbly part about coming up with possible explanation for how the world works, and then you examine it. It's both. Yeah, it's a bit like evolution works, right? That
Mhm.
genes get random mutations and it creates new forms of beings, and then selection comes and keeps what works, right? So maybe there's an analogy to that.
Yeah, yeah. There's an erosion to bad ideas,
Yes.
right? If you've got sandstone in a canyon that gets washed with water and beaten with wind, the crumbly stuff will disappear. It'll go down the
Yeah.
river. That's just kind of how things work. And I
Mm.
think there's a lot of things in this world, be it science or other assumptions, that are eroding at possibly a faster rate because we're talking to each other more, through the internet and all these other means. I think perhaps we're going to find ourselves having access to this larger volume of information, and if people cultivate the ability of discernment, the scientific model, yes, and other
Mm.
models as well, in addition to it, not in absence of it, we're going to start to figure out deeper truths of our existence. There's a lot
Mm.
there. Well, this has been fascinating. And you're awesome. I love what you're doing. I think that there's multiple layers yet to be discussed here. There's limited time though for our viewers. I want to be respectful of the fact that the viewers have other things going on too. But so I am curious if people have further questions for you, how they might reach out to you, how they might be able to get a copy of your book, and find out more about what your current events are.
Yeah, so the best place to find me is online. It's on my personal website, jean.hausser.org with two S. Where this is where for my contact and what's going on in my life right now. It's also where you find the link to the book, which is coming out on June the 12th. I'm very happy about it. I made the cover myself. It's
It's
called
beautiful.
Skiing and Sailing Antarctica,
It's elegant,
leading yourself where there's nowhere to hide.
where there's nowhere to hide. That's a
Yes.
beautiful and brave pursuit. Yeah, it's awesome. Well, I want to thank you so much. This was really, really fascinating, and I know our viewers are going to be leaning into it quite a lot. But yeah, thank you so much for giving us a bit of your time and attention to share this incredible message about this astounding, epic journey that you took. And I just want to say I hope that you've got other stuff on the horizon. Yeah, maybe not Antarctica, but something that you can write of and share even more.
Thanks, Brian. It's been a pleasure.
Have a great day.